One of the biggest wins, not just for Marvel Studios, but for us fans as well, was Marvel's decision to bring back the Russo brothers to direct Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. Now, they also brought back Robert Downey Jr. along with the Russo brothers, and that has mixed reactions, but the fandom typically believes that the Russos returning is an absolute win. The Russo brothers, along with Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, and Stephen McFeely is writing Doomsday and Secret Wars, so that's another win, but they all wrote and directed Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Captain America: Civil War, Avengers: Infinity War, and Avengers: Endgame. And now they return to Marvel Studios to write Doomsday and Secret Wars, but here's the thing, it's more than just them returning. It's about making sure that Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars can't fail. And after hearing the Russo brothers talk about why they have returned, I believe that this movie can't fail, especially after hearing what they had to say in a recent interview. The Russo brothers are doing what a lot of studios have failed to do over and over again for some reason, and that is they are putting the story before anything else. In fact, they said that the only reason they agreed to return is because the Russo brothers and Stephen McFeely had an aha moment of what the story could be. It just clicked one day, and they talked to Stephen McFeely on the phone and they went, "This is it. Now we'll return, we'll agree to return," but only after they had that aha moment for what the story is going to be did they agree to return. And after you hear what they had to say in this recent interview, I think you're going to be a lot more excited for Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, and if you are one of those people who are still doubting if Marvel can return to peak, hopefully this gives you a little bit more confidence in them. So let's get into it. The Russo brothers just made the movie The Electric State. It'll be on Netflix on March 14th, and right now they're going around doing press interviews promoting the show. That's great because luckily for us, most of the people who interview them ask about Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. And on the Discourse podcast, they specifically talked about why they returned and why this specific story is so important. In the interview, they were asked about if they felt all of the pressure from the fans for them to get this right. Speaking about Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, and they said, "We definitely tried to. I mean, we did so many of those movies in a row that you sort of forget about the pressure. The job is so all-encompassing and so intense that you can't really think about, well, what are people going to feel or think about this? All you can think about is this a good story that we want to tell or not? Why are we doing it? You're trying to hit our anxiety buttons, right?" they said in the interview. But once again, the Russo brothers suggested that it was really falling in love with the story that they came up with. Joe Russo said, "So we're exclusively focused on the storytelling right now." And that's the thing that brought us back, an idea for a story where we went, that's a really, really interesting story to tell. And now we're just focused on executing that idea. Pressure and fear usually make for very poor decision making, so hopefully we just stay calm and keep making the stories the way we like to see them. And very interestingly enough, the podcast asked about what the Russo brothers thought of the multiverse saga so far. And they asked the Russo brothers whether they thought it lacked the through line of the previous Infinity Stone saga. Certainly something that has been quite the debate with the multiverse saga with the fandom. So they asked about that connective tissue that Marvel stories allow, and if the multiverse saga had done a decent job. And Anthony Russo said this in reply, "Look, what you're describing is like one of the most valuable aspects of the experience for us as fans and as storytellers. So we lean into that in a strong way, and we really feel like the connective through line is one of the most unique things the MCU can do that other forms of cinematic storytelling can't do." And he reiterates what Joe said. Anthony says, "Part of the reason why we became reactivated," speaking about coming back to Marvel Studios, like Joe was describing, in terms of like falling in love with the story that we felt was powerful and needed to be told, is exactly what you're describing, is that there is a narrative through everything. Even that portion of the narrative that has been unfolding since the end of Endgame, we're hopeful that we can pick up that story in a way that kind of honors what's happened between now and then, but also moves it forward. So this is just so different than anything that we've really heard so far, recently at least, when it comes to storytelling in the MCU. Because Marvel Studios has before in the past, and Disney has done this as well along with other studios, they've hired directors for movies and shows who have little to no experience either directing or little to no experience directing superhero films. And sometimes that can be kind of bad, like for She-Hulk and Ms. Marvel. And they also sometimes prioritize messaging over storytelling. We've seen that before, and it looks like that is mostly done as studios realize that fans don't necessarily care about messaging, they just want a good story. Everybody is here for a good message, but it has to be worked in a good story. The story has to be the priority. And with the Russo brothers, they are making that the absolute priority, and that is above anything else. That is above cameos, above fan service, above what has already really happened so far in the MCU multiverse saga. They're really just making it about this one specific story that they are super excited about, that they feel that they need to tell. However, on top of that, they of course realize what makes the MCU great, the connectivity of it all. And they express that they are going to honor what happened before, which they have to do. They can't just get rid of everything that's already happened in the multiverse saga and also in the Infinity Saga, in which they played a huge part in. But like it should be, they are going to warp everything around their particular story that they have in mind. And that is 100% what makes a great film. Having a great story and morphing everything around that to make it even better. Because look, we know there are going to be cameos. There is going to be fan service, hopefully done in a really great way. I think back to Captain America wielding Mjolnir and saying Avengers Assemble. That's fan service, but it was done in an incredible way that wasn't cheesy and fans can definitely appreciate. This is why I don't think that Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars can fail. Marvel and the Russo brothers are going about this the 100% correct way. They brought back directors who not only extremely care about what they are creating, but who have already proved that they can direct MCU films and those movies be the greatest movies from the MCU. Not only that, but they have proven that they can handle a ginormous cast, because that's what they've already done with Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. They came in and they completely started over with the script. Marvel already had a script for Avengers Kang Dynasty, so they already had an idea of what they wanted Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars to be, but the Russo brothers came in and said, no, we're going to make our own story. We're starting from scratch. And Kevin Feige was smart enough to go, okay, do that. Let's tell this amazing story that you guys have come up with, and we'll tie everything else into it. And Kevin Feige would only say that if he really thought the story was fantastic. So he clearly did, because we have seen Marvel Studios now delay and cancel projects, both movies and shows, because they don't fit into the overall story that the Russo brothers are about to tell. And the other movies that are coming into play are going to tie into the overall story, like Spider-Man 4 and Doctor Strange 3. Marvel Studios is doing everything right now. So we have possibly the best directors that we could get for the MCU, for these next two Avengers films. They're tried and true. They are huge fans of the actual comic stories, and they didn't come back just to come back. They only agreed to come back after they found that perfect story that they say needed to be told. And there's really no interference with their story. Marvel has basically told them, yeah, do what it takes to make this story work for the current MCU. And to top it all off, we know that there's going to be fan service. We know the Russo brothers can do that in a great way. I mean, it's the multiverse saga. We've already seen some really awesome variants. I'm sure the Russo brothers are going to bring in some more in a really cool way. And besides, they have pretty much every single character that they would want to use at their disposal. The Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and pretty much anybody else they'd like to use. So to me, I don't think these next two Avengers films and the end of the multiverse saga can really fail. I think everything is set up for it to be just perfect. I hope I'm right, but in the meantime, let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below. Are you nervous about the next two Avengers films, or do you think the Russo brothers will pull it off? Let us know. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU news, rumors, or leaks. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.